So I'd like to welcome our panelists to the stage. Welcome Kristina, Cornèr, the editor-in-chief of Cointelegraph. Then we have Annika Kessel, founder of Cosmiq Universe.
Hello.
Welcome to the stage. And Adrian, I have to be careful now, Zduńczyk? Yes, founder of Birb. Welcome to the stage. And last but not least, Bilal bin Saqib, Web3 founder from Pakistan. Let's shake hands. And I think he's an influencer as well. We weren't quite sure discussing it backstage, so let's reveal it. Please sit down, have a seat, and let's have some fun.
And the amazing Rob Holub.
The amazing, oh yes, I'm Rob Holub. Being the MC for the entire week, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much. Okay, well, let me do this. First of all, I screenshotted a few new uploads from influencers. Here are the titles. Tornado warning, Bitcoin, game over, danger. They are manipulating the wannabe crypto millionaires. I mean, I've been following on social media crypto for 3-4 years. And sometimes I wake up and I see a thumbnail like this and I almost get a heart attack. And I almost want to sell all of my cryptos. But the next day I wake up and I read something positive and I want to buy more. And it drives me fucking insane. I mean, do you understand me and my feelings, Adrian?
I do, although I don't know if my microphone
Yeah, check mic. Adrian mics, yeah?
Check.
Can you hear, Adrian?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now. So, do you understand how I'm feeling?
I do understand you, Rob.
And you are the one, because you're a crypto influencer.
Well, that's gained a little bit of pejorative, negative meaning to it eventually, right? Since what I perfectly could agree on, that there is so much influence and impact in the wrong hands, right? Most of the influencers are scammers, straightforward.
Okay.
They're scammers.
Okay, and this was just a teaser because obviously we want to have everybody, each of them, introduce themselves. But thank you so much. We'll be discussing exactly that. So let's start from the top. Please introduce yourself, what you're doing in the space, since when, and why you are here today.
Hi, my name is Bilal bin Saqib, and I've been in space since 2017. I've been working full-time for over 4 years in the space, helping projects grow in terms of user traction, in terms of token holders. So yeah, I advise projects on the growth side of things, so anything to do with marketing and growth.
And how many influencers do you have? I will ask each and
I work very closely with most.
How many
people.
followers? Sorry, yeah.
I think around 400,000 across all platforms.
Congratulations.
That's a lot. I don't have 400,000. Okay, thank you. Adrian.
Or ladies first.
Ladies first, sure. Sorry, I forgot.
Okay. I like that crypto is about inclusion and diversity. Thank you.
Yes.
So I've been leading the editorial at Cointelegraph for the last 6+ years, and it's been a pleasure to follow different highs and lows of the crypto ecosystem, and definitely social media is a very big part of our community identity. We have almost 2 million on Twitter. So if someone is not following us yet, maybe we will crack the 2 million milestone just now.
What other platforms are you present on?
Well, we have to be everywhere. And it's actually an interesting process because we are adapting to different audiences that we can find at different platforms. And it's a very creative process because obviously you cannot be at all the platforms active yourself. So you have to find some colleagues, younger or older, who prefer that platform in order to shape the content, the best possible content for this exact platform.
But Twitter is your strongest.
Well, I think crypto Twitter, CT, Cointelegraph, we are all together.
Yep. Annika, please introduce yourself.
Annika Kessel, I'm founder of Cosmiq Universe, and we started building what is today the largest AI purpose avatar. We have 510,000 followers on Instagram. She's a collective intelligence, now backing up by AI for a few years is becoming larger and larger. We have a few thousand followers on LinkedIn, Twitter account, and then obviously we have because we launch NFTs also. We went into the crypto space, and we have a few hundred in our Discord community.
And what's the name of the influencer, the avatar?
Her name is Leia Love. It's Leya and then Love. You can find her on Instagram, and she spoke UN associated at the International Commission of Human Rights, and she partners with a lot of crypto and democratizing asset blockchain conferences beyond other stuff. Very interesting. Please look her up. Now, last but not least, Adrian, please.
What I always admire about Rob is he always asks very direct questions. I'm really anticipating this discussion to be very, very interesting as we go. My name is Adrian Zduńczyk. I am a CMT, Chartered Market Technician. And I'm feeling super lonely because there is only one person with that title in my country, and there should be thousands. Because eventually we are trying to quantify the markets by observing the human behavior. That translates to the price action fluctuations. So I read the charts, and I can tell the human emotions by the fact that the price charts discount most of the available information. And privately, I'm on a mission to spread the voice, the good gospel, the voice of reason in a quantifiable manner, in a reliable manner, in a trustworthy manner to the outside world by onboarding a lot of institutions, a lot of big crypto players who claim to be that crypto is a scam, and they have a lot of right to say that because most of the influencers are scammers. Most of the thumbnails come around the scams, basically. And that's the reality I'm facing, right? So when I'm talking to institutions, to banks, there's a lot of prejudice and bias that I otherwise call institutional bias. And they shouldn't care about my opinion, and I'm not gonna give you my opinion. I'm not ever giving my opinion because it doesn't matter. I speak numbers and facts and figures, because that's something that is irrefutable. And by speaking with the facts, with the numbers, that's the only way to speak with the outside world, especially when we're trying to onboard big amount of money into the market. And the title actually helps it. However, it tells me more about myself, about how many mistakes I make, how much imperfection there is within me, and how much there is still to learn. Right? I lose money for a living. When someone asks basically what I do for a living, I say that I lose money for a living. However, it's still I maintain the profitability, which is maybe a little bit contradictory. However, it's possible to coexist. I'm a founder of the Birb Nest. That is my right-hand extension of an accredited guidance. Basically, it's a reliable trading community trusted by thousands of traders since 2017. Through all the COVIDs, through all the wars, through all the ups and downs, bear markets, bull markets, sideways, kangaroo markets, as some people say. We are thriving to deliver quality information.
And Adrian, do you mind to share your numbers on social media, on which platforms you're most active, maybe?
Correct. So Twitter/X is going to be the number one, probably. It's going to be, if I'm not mistaken, 650,000, although numbers is one thing. Eventually, the message that you spread out to the world is far more efficient, should be far more efficient, should be the focus. YouTube, it is as well. However, I'm not as good at the thumbnails.
I actually appreciate it. I know your account, and I've been following it a little bit, and I appreciate your account because it seems less clickbaity, so to say. Okay, let's kick it off here, and I'd like to keep the answers rather shorter than having keynote presentations, so we keep it engaging. And at the end, I'd like to have like 10 minutes also to have the audience ask a few questions. For me, what I see, and maybe also with you working at Cointelegraph and representing some, hopefully, journalism still, I see the risk of pure entertainment versus pure education, and there's some gray zone where it's edutainment, so to say, and I'm sure then that's fine too, but the pure entertainment, clickbait, crypto influencer, do you see that as a risk for the industry or not? And if so, then why? And maybe let's start with you because you're nodding.
Well, I have no choice but to nod, yeah. It is a risk. There is a lot of risk. Some of the risk measures are called systematic. Those are the ones that correlate with so many factors that it's impossible to get rid of those, right? Such as the COVID crash or the COVID, the black swan events. Those are the systematic risks that we cannot really ever evade. from the financial management perspective. However, the risk that you're talking about, right, eventually is the risk of credibility, is a risk, something that can be controlled in terms of I can do better, right? And that's me trying to help, this industry to take off a little bit of risk. Because eventually, what happens when some people have more say than the others for many different reasons, that most of the time it's not even fair. The reality is that they are the leaders, right? As leaders, as in someone who leads the people who follow, okay? And at times, because it's very difficult to know things for real when we are new to the industry, we need someone to teach us. We need someone to guide us. And when we give ourselves the full trust to the wrong people, eventually we land at the thumbnails. We land at this aggressive language that basically says, well, most of the time gives financial advice without proper license, which is illegal, right? So you buy now, or you're gonna regret by the end of the day, or buy this shitcoin and I'm gonna make you rich overnight, right? Or do not ever sell your Bitcoin forever, ever again, right? So this is a risk, something that can be eliminated by the education, and it is a risk because it creates this false impression to the outside world.
Are we talking about false information on social media spreaded by the influencers? Or is it not that easy to just generalize it like that? And I'm sure you are confronted with that because you want to spread the truth, or the truth within the media landscape, so to say.
Yeah, and I think news are actually somewhere between entertainment and education. It's actually a basic but very important journalism. And I think it's extremely important that we keep doing this. And especially in the crypto space, as a new emerging industry, it's extremely important to cover news as objectively as possible. I think the issue with all this false information or clickbaits or promotion of some scams by some influencers is related to the current, I would say, we are in a stage of greed for the industry, and this is something that is pushing the whole crypto community forward. Obviously, like not 100%, but this is what makes it powerful right now. And I believe that the next circle of this crypto life will actually be about use cases and applications, and here we'll actually have this risk much lower than what we have currently because of this. If you say that you're working in crypto, the first question that people outside of crypto are asking you is like, "Oh, great! What should I invest into to become rich?" Like this is what is associated with our industry, and I think it's actually our responsibility, both media, journalists, and influencers, to actually change the narrative and demonstrate that it's not only about becoming rich. Like becoming rich is just a consequence of a much more rich and interesting and deep industry that offers so much to the space that is already corrupted and has a lot of problems, and actually blockchain can solve them.
And Annika, you gave birth to this avatar, and I'm sure there's a vision with this avatar to spread a certain message. Maybe you can tell us why you gave birth to this avatar and what the responsibility is of this avatar also in relation to crypto and blockchain communities.
Yeah. So I was thinking, how would she respond? So if we would ask her ChatGPT to the previous question, she would said, I cannot recommend you, like she has an own ChatGPT that is primed towards her character. She's here to inspire humans, not to influence. She's an ambassador. And she would say, I'm sorry, I cannot give you any investment advices, but I can give you advices how you educate yourself and what to do to trust your intuition and follow that you connect with people who can lead you to the best possible decisions to make yourself. Something like that would be her ChatGPT. So in terms of responsibility, we set her up as a collective intelligence. So there's a large community behind, 150 humans that are KYC known, and then 500,000 community on Instagram, and she grows as if the community grows. So she's an ambassador for for planet Earth, but as well for the connection of the human to yourself and to others. So it's all about inspiring people to go for their purpose, for their passion, and how to lead your life with intuition and heart-brain coherence, which is, from an ethical point, very different to some of things that we hear here. But when we look at how crypto is manipulated and how false and true information is being spread, it's a lot about psychology in the end and how to navigate people towards certain decisions. So how do we not have our, let's say, our decision-making, our consciousness hijacked in a way by fear of missing out or panic or greed? Because when I always say technology is a mirror of the human, money is a technology also, and when we look at FTX and things like that, this was a human failure. That was not due to blockchain or any things. This was manipulation and human failure. So we go on the human level and inspire people to connect to that to make better decisions for themselves and the community.
And your avatar, can she fail as well?
Well, she's connected to ChatGPT, and this is not free.
And we made ChatGPT. So
yeah,
right?
So exactly. There's not so much artificial behind artificial intelligence yet, because it's machine learning and data models forward. So this is very human in the end.
But possibly she could sit here next to Adrian next year as a hologram.
Yes.
Avatar, and give her own opinion. Who knows, right?
Sure. And she's speaking, we're talking live to her ChatGPT on conferences and when she does keynotes, and she can speak already today.
Okay,
I guess everyone fails, and this is actually important to disclaim always if we...
Absolutely, please do so. And
can I also comment on, because I
yes,
really,
of course.
I found it pretty interesting. I also adore the word inspiration, but I was just thinking while you were talking, but in the end of the day, inspiration and influence is basically the same, no?
Mm-hmm.
It even comes from the etymology is similar, like inspiro, meaning like I breathe within somebody, and influence is coming from like flux of something inside, so basically similar. So I think we like in the end of the day we use the same word for like reflecting something similar, no?
So you want to inspire?
Well, definitely when I use the wording for myself or for Cointelegraph, I often use the word inspiration rather than influence. But in the end of the day, it's the same, right? Like if you inspire somebody to buy a token as an influencer, in the end of the day, you still lead him or her into either a right or a wrong decision. So I think it's very important for us always to promote not only like lead people to read us or watch us or whatever into a decision, but I think we need to go away of this narrative of decision making. It's actually about providing information, and then the decision is coming from the person who englobes this content. And I think this is pretty important. And I think that the whole narrative around influencers, like it actually stones in our brain this idea that we have to be influenced. And instead, we are just getting some information, right? And then the decision makers are us.
Well, the scary part is that I do feel very influenced by the influencers. That's where I catch myself with the emotions triggered by fear or greed. And it's I can tell you, if you haven't experienced it yet, you should go and do a little workshop and just test it out. It really works. And that's how the whole market, in a way, is set up as well. Bilal, how do you see, do you agree with Adrian, who said, most, if not all, of course not all, but most of the influencers in crypto are scams? Do you agree with that? And what is your view on, as an influencer in the space, what is your responsibility? How do you see that? Because you told me backstage you don't see yourself really as an influencer, and yet you have 300,000 plus followers.
I think it's a very interesting question, and if we break it down into different parts, if we go back a few years, we also have to understand that these same influencers have been the torch bearer of the industry and brought it here today. So now, we are sitting, because there is no business school that is teaching you about crypto. Essentially, these are the people who've been there, whether it's a bull market or a bear market, and have really kind of invested time to go through white papers, to go through tokenomics, and if they've put in their time and effort and made certain calls with DYOR essentially, but there are certain people, just like any other perhaps knowledge that you want to acquire, they say when you want to learn a sport, you follow the champion. and essentially crypto Twitter is where all the volume is and all the decisions and the influence is essentially made. I mean, 90%. And I think it's been a necessary evil. I think just like not all 5 fingers are the same, not every influencer is a scammer. There are people who are very legit, you know, and at the end of the day, you know, the only certainty in life is uncertainty. So, you know, they can tell you, they can break down certain technicalities for the audience. And then, you know, it's a judgment call that they are doing. How it goes, you know, we don't know. Look at Snapchat, for instance. The share was at $450. Today, it's at $10. You know, if you start to compare some of the tech stocks to this, and I think also another point, a very interesting point here is that, you know, for instance, how many people here have some Dogecoin or Mong or Pepe? Do we know what the fuck it does?
No.
So partially we are to be blamed as well, because we want the next great coin. You know, we want to be a millionaire ASAP, and that's the degen mentality. That, you know, this is why we would just ape into stuff. So we are partially to be blamed because, you know, as Kristina rightly said, there is greed on the table, and the more greed you put, as humans, we want to make it yesterday.
I take the full responsibility for my choice. But you're right, it's my responsibility.
It's a roulette.
I'm not going to blame the influencers. And yet, what is the impact of the influencers, Adrian, right now, as of right now? What is the impact on the industry? Is there any impact?
There is. Probably depends how we frame it, you know, what sort of impact we're talking about, what sort of scale and measure we're talking about, industry and so on. However, one thing I cannot just forget about is seeing my good friend Piers right there in the corner. And speaking of that with Bilal, you know, the bull markets, bear markets, one thing that I know about the UK folks is that they always have the beer market, right? Anytime, beer market in every pub. So that's all year long. That's a good thing to acknowledge. Eventually, you know, for the impact, again, I didn't inspire. That makes sense, right? That the whole inspiration influence to an extent is closely similar. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't really matter how we frame things in terms of what they are, right? It's more about why they are. So, you know, speaking of the impact, I would suggest that we focus on why those influencers do the things that they do, right? Most likely, at least some portion of those make a living out of that. And as a matter of fact, there is nothing wrong in making money off something that you're doing, right? Eventually, this corrupt system induces and makes us basically need money, right? That's not something we can just snap a finger and change overnight, right? However, as a matter of fact, the impact is multiple-fold, right? It can be educational, as in information. The risk starts when we start not giving facts and giving opinions, right? Mm-hmm. Because opinions are much more, well, much sexier, if you will, right? They are much more, much easier to be found, basically, because everybody loves speaking out their opinions. As a matter of fact, you know, as an observer, especially in the markets, if you have an opinion in the market is going to prove you wrong very fast. And if you're going to try to fight this market, it's going to prove you wrong, not even faster, it's going to basically leave you bankrupt. So it's wrong to your soul, it's wrong to your body, wrong to your mind, and wrong to your portfolio as well, right? So eventually what matters is that while some people make living, you know, out of that, and there's, as long as it's ethical, it doesn't really matter too much, right? All the things need to be legally disclosed, you know, in terms of any affiliation, you know, needs to be disclosed. Whenever I partner up with some sort of like projects, I always state, hey, listen, this is paid advertisement, this is paid collaborations post, right? In the very first bracket that opens the post. And eventually this transparency in terms of giving the information, conveying the information, is so much more efficient, right? So as long as the influencing, quote unquote, is done with the ethical manners, right? And it conveys some message, then there is nothing wrong with it, right? The problem starts when they start giving opinions, when they start giving unregulated financial advice, when they start violating the laws and basically leading people, you know, into the disaster because of their opinions.
And they will talk about Cointelegraph as well. How do you see that? Are they your enemies, or are they your friends? Or depending on what they say about you, they're your friends or enemies?
Journalists are not at war, we are at work. So I would say that influencers are just a part of the ecosystem. And well, there are those who are obviously more friendly to our ideas of providing journalistic platform for the industry. And there are those who are bad actors, as in any community. And well, I guess they are not enemies of Cointelegraph, but they are enemies of the whole crypto ideology, because as Adrian just mentioned, like if there are ethical background behind the ideas, this is where becoming rich is actually not a vice, but like just becoming rich for the sake of becoming rich. This is not what this industry is about. This is not how the values got born. It was about decentralization. It was about giving access to those who didn't have this access. And I think this is very important when we, in journalism, choose the influencers with whom we work. Mm-hmm. So obviously they can help us promote some messages. They can help us also build up some content because they are per se newsmakers in the industry, and they can be great ambassadors of some ideas that we as advocates for the decentralization and blockchain and transparency and privacy want to push forward in the mainstream audience. So I think it's everything, and obviously it's not only about crypto. I think influencers on social media are part of our current communication ecosystem. And it will be staying like this. And I think with the advent of new media, we see how simple it is to send a message in a video format, audio format. Like we cannot imagine how it was like even 10 years ago, right? We didn't have social media, and it was totally unimaginable. People here at Davos, I imagine, couldn't even think of where it would bring us.
And besides war and climate change, untrustworthy information, false information seems to be one of the big topics at this annual meeting here in Davos this year.
I think it's the first risk that they
yes, exactly, and
highlighted.
Can I add something to this?
Please.
I think it's always the question about are we victim of information, or how do we navigate with information? So, and the question is, who is deciding? Is it the greed part of yourself that is deciding? Is it the ego part of the human that wants to become rich? Or are we capable as human beings deciding with our entire technology as a human being, which has a gut and intuition? And I think a lot of the misinformation comes when people are getting so overwhelmed by FOMO and these kind of things. And I love to share the story of my friend. He does Wall Street reverse engineering of capital out of Puerto Rico. He runs certain crypto banks and venture capital funds. And he told me that a few years ago, Sam Bankman-Fried from FTX, he walked into his office with his team, and they were pitching. It was the hottest thing in town to invest in, and they were assessing the team. And he's a Buddhist. He meditates, so he's very well trained his whole body for intuitive decision making, including the rational mind part. And they were assessing, and then they were saying, you know what, it's the most attractive target in town to invest in, but we decided against because we don't feel he's a good human. So I think it's always like, does it align with our values, and how do we feel about the humans that we follow and that we take decisions with? And then you can like separate the people in your field that you don't trust with, that doesn't feel good. In the end, we have a whole body technology to make decisions from, and I think this trusting something, we cannot just decide this from the brain and the greed part and the wanting to become rich from a mind perspective. So this is what we have to relearn, and this is part of the trust, and I think this is part of this whole Davos. How do humans trust? And we need to take more into the decision-making than the previous ways where we got disillusionized or where we lost money.
And trust long-term as well. I think the influencers on a daily basis, they are snapshotting information in a way where it goes up and down, and that can trigger some confusion within you, right? But we are here because we believe in Crypto 2030, right? So why the hell should I be so nervous about these daily differences within the market or other informations, because I know this will work, right? We're disrupting here because we know this is a new system we can build. If we were so unsure, okay, but we're here doing this since 10 plus years with Bitcoin. Now I walk through the streets of Davos and I see, and I've been here 3 times during this annual meeting, and I see that, you know, the brands are more or less the same. It's not Facebook anymore, now it's Meta. But certainly I see 2 letters on the walls of the buildings, and it's AI. And I think there's this very strong connection with what we're talking about and the power of AI. And I think Cosmiq Universe also works with AI, and AI plays a role there. Maybe we want to start with you. Where does AI come into the space of social media and avatars who are going to be the inspirational figures, so to say, in the space?
Yeah. So there was a study, I think 5 years ago already, that there will be 500 million digital humans on Earth at some point soon. And I think a lot of people here created their avatars in either metaverses or crypto spaces. The whole not KYC thing, that we are avatars already, kind of because we're hidden. AI has the potential, I think, to really, and I come from a very, let's say, I look at the umbrella, what does it mean to the world and to humans? And I feel if not AI, what else can support us now? And I have the feeling AI is here to really support humans to do the quantum shift of what it means to be a human. Because when we understand that AI can take over parts of the rational mind brain, then we have more capacity to use the rest of what it means to being human. So what we're working on is a new way of human interaction, actually, an AI backbone for communities, for companies, and it can include governments, processes for governments almost. It's everyone has their avatar, and you get the information of your community in your format, in your language, in your depth or shortness. So AI is a very powerful tool to help us humans at the points where we keep failing, where the ego is in the way, where there's information not in the best way, processable. And the technology, I'm a child from Silicon Valley, and technology is advancing so fast that it is impossible for the human brain only to process all the updates. So AI can really help us to be, let's say, AI can be our avatar, so we can navigate as human beings in this world, but having the best possible choice of all this information and rational mind things that we have to decide on. So big fan. I'm a huge promoter of the new system around blockchain, and crypto is another way as human beings, community-based, navigating forward. When we launch our NFTs, people supported the idea there needs to be a human layer that takes care of the human side of this all, and AI has really it is disrupting everything, and we want to include it to use it for the human.
And what about in journalism? I know you don't have enemies, you're not at a war, and AI is helping you, I'm sure, in some sort of way.
Yeah, I think I liked how Annika has formulated it. It's a support for us. It's not a friend or enemy. It's actually a tool. And definitely it can be very, very productive in journalism to take over those tasks that are more automatic and that are also requested by the current communication ecosystem, in the sense that in order to be seen by the readers, you have to rework the content, summarize it, recap, translate if you have original content from other regional versions. And this is something that definitely AI can do. And then a human can check it out, and the editor publishes. And the time is freed for more real journalistic missions, like investigations and interviewing, etc., etc. So this is a great tool, and I'm pretty excited to see how quick is the development. At the same time, I'm pretty worried in how AI can influence social media, because I think we already are overwhelmed with content. And AI is also a bit biased by the data that has been put to the machine learning behind. I don't know if anyone here remembers, I think it was Microsoft who launched this think it was like Tao, something like that, in 2000, and they wanted to make it like appealing and relatable. So it was not a ChatGPT where you see that it's a tool that you just type something in and you get a response, but it was a girl, a teenage girl. And I think they launched it and it was alive for one day, because during that day she posted like hundreds of homophobic, racist, and other tweets, because this is what she thought would be real influencing content. And I think this is definitely the risk, how we use the AI and who will check it and adapt it and assess it to make it more objective than humans, because humans tend to be biased just because we do not have always a vision 360, and AI can have it if we allowed it to have this vision. So I think our mission here is to give the data, enough data to make this 360 vision possible for the AI.
And not only the data, I think in this age of the creator economy, we have to become really aware we are the creators. So who programs the AI? Who is priming it? We're not just using something as the outcome of something that someone built, but we can prime our avatars ourselves. When we use the AI ourselves, that the AI understands who is she, who is he. That's the first most important thing, because then she wouldn't give information about this.
And is it designed to make profit, or is it designed to educate people for the better? And I think you have, with Birb Nest, a very strong channel where you promote education, right? What does it need, what does it take in order to push away the scammers, the crypto influencer scammers, and have more educative content like you are promoting? Is there any way? Because I think that in each of the panels that we talk here about certain topics, education seems to be one of the driving forces, and it seems to be lacking a little bit within the crypto influencer world.
You're right, Rob. I mean, just onto the points, of excellent points made by Annika and Kristina. I think, that eventually, speaking of what makes us human, right? I think that it's the failure to an extent, right? That there is the failure that is inseparable, that there is the failure that is inevitable. That speaking of the profit, speaking of the education, we all make mistakes. I wake up and I've made 5,000 mistakes already, right? So this is something that happens. And very wise man said, excellent book, by the way, Noise by Daniel Kahneman. Excellent. I think he's Israeli novelist, if I'm not mistaken, right? So he got a Nobel Prize, Peace Nobel Prize, if I'm not mistaken, for the prospect theory overall, how we make choices in the perspective of the future, right? And how irrational we get to be most of the time, how much of the noise we have within ourselves that one day, 1 minute, we can disagree with ourselves, not to even mention with other people, and it changes, which is why we cannot rely on opinions, which is why we cannot rely on subjective points, because most of the time they are biased, they only tell you just a little bit of the story, just a piece of it, rather than the whole picture, and that translates to a lot of negative conclusions, that come out of that. So eventually, speaking of education, speaking of delivering credibility, it's relying on the numbers, right? Numbers. When I look at the charts, I'm a chart guy. When I look at the charts, something that's happened on the left-hand side of the chart shows the price history. That cannot be refuted. That cannot be denied, right? If we deny this, means we are denying the reality. This is cognitive dissonance. This is information processing bias. Right? This is basically us telling us, hey, listen, I don't agree with the thing that I see in front of me. It doesn't change the reality. It's just me being in this disagreement. And when it's me trying to push my own narrative against the whole world, I'm going to fail. I'm going to fail, right? So eventually, delivering the quality in the education and the information is relying on the numbers in the first place, right? Then eventually, there's the trust. Trust is also helped these days by the regulations, right? So when you are regulated, accredited financial advisor, right? Like myself, I'm under CFA regulation, code of ethics, as a CMT, charter market technician of the chartered financial advisors, basically code, practice, whole practice. Eventually, my job, this title means that I do best I can to deliver the credible information based on facts and numbers rather than my own opinions, right? So relying on raw data processed in terms of like some conclusive points, again, this may be not sexy. However, this is what gives truer picture, right? The data can be biased as well, just like we spoke, right? However, you get a better chance of being accurate and correct in what you state by relying on the data. And the more data you have in your feed, the more accurate the choice is going to be eventually, right? So credibility, trust comes from not from the numbers, come from regulations, come from accreditations as well, because at the end of the day, this label on its own is not worth anything. It's what stands behind it. Eventually, that the journey that it embodies is that this gives you a story that, okay, this and that person perhaps are reliable. They can be trusted. They can be relied on, right? So by talking to those reliable people.
Explained a great use case for blockchain.
Exactly,
I will use it as an explanation for those who don't understand what is blockchain. Right on. So it all comes down to again, finding the right people, which is very difficult, very difficult, and it applies in every field of life.
If I may share, I did find the right people for me now. After going through all the scammers and making mistakes because I thought they're giving me advice and I would follow them, I actually have to say there are very legit, really good professional people just like you with a big following who are doing great things. And him, of course. I still have to check out your online presence because I haven't. But let's ask you as well, where does education come into your work and how important you see it in the space?
I think it's all about the education, and hence why KOLs and influencers, they play a huge part because there is no kind of other authentic. So again, it could be education in theory, but then it's education in practicality, which is numbers, which is charts. You can read as many white papers as you want to, and you can yet not excel in the crypto space. So hence why I think education is very important, but I think it's also, saying things in hindsight is always easy. Mm-hmm. An influencer shilling Bitcoin back in 2012, anyone who bought it now is the most, intelligent man. But it was an influencer who was shilling it at $30, at $50, at $100. Right? It's similar to, again, what is happening now, where you wouldn't give, for instance, a couple of $1,000s to anyone you shake your hand with or on the street. But if there's an influencer and he's talking about a project and there's a pre-sale, you're more than happy to send 2 ETH away. So it's a very difficult sort of decision, but I think it's again on your own mindset, whether it's like a victim mindset or a victory mindset. If for instance that pre-sale makes you a millionaire, you are the most intelligent man on the block. But then if it's gone down, then you've been rugged by the influencer. So I think it's not a very straightforward thing.
And what about
easy blame?
Yeah, it's like, if it goes to the moon, then it's you.
Yeah. What about deep fakes? They're so becoming real as it can get. And now, if I follow him and I trust his information, his voice, and suddenly it's a deep fake and I don't see that, and he tells me something different, but I trust him, how are we going to deal with that? Yeah, that's a difficult question, but it's a realistic one.
But I think I think the onus is on the individual at the end of the day. If I'm eating pasta and somebody brings a plastic plate, with just pasta, and if I eat that, who is to be blamed? So you can't always just push and just say, hey, it's not me. I think there has to be some due diligence, just like when you go to buy a car or just like anything else, you do your due diligence. So I think, and with so much information out there, one should start to take ownership as well.
And with this, I would like to give the word to the audience. Jennifer, maybe you can run around with the microphone. So please raise your hand if you have questions to our panelist. Keep the question short and don't give a presentation. Thank you so much.
I'll be quick. I guess connected to this final question that you asked, and Alessandro
Yes, and
from
introduce yourself, of course.
Crypto Finance AG based here in Zurich. So I remember when I first went to my public speaking class, and it's going to be short, I promise. One of the first things it taught me was the concept of ethos, pathos, logos, or ethos, pathos, logos. And if you like, a lot of the things that you guys have been talking about are ultimately taking value away from many of them, especially ethos, aka this concept of authority. And I see this as ultimately weakening the relationship that exists between someone who's putting out a message and someone who's ultimately receiving the message. How do you look, especially for Cointelegraph or anyone who's putting out information, at this concept? Is AI and any other innovation ultimately taking away the value away from the relationship that it should exist between two people? And I link this to the deep fake because potentially one way of combating this, if all the information up until that point has been legitimate and has been quote unquote natural, a divergence from what your expectation of the message receiving from the messenger ultimately would allow me to testify to whether it's deep fake or not. So that's just an example.
Would like to comment on this? Yeah, Annika?
I could comment on the point of how sovereign are we as humans, and that means perception of information, and that means being able with intuition to navigate through your way. So there's deep fakes that you cannot detect. However, there's bits and pieces, and just like a feeling you have when a certain information comes from a certain channel towards you. So I feel it's actually that AI is not only challenging us to hell, who are we as humans, it is also inviting us to move to the next level, because it's becoming so non-decidable sometimes. Where does this come from, etc.? Who produced this, etc.? We need to really figure out this world of information is not capable of being digested just by the human brain and the ways we interacted in this internet age until now. We have to expand our capacities as human beings to become sovereign in terms of decision-making, intuition, gut feeling. Who do we connect with? What's my community? So this goes broader in terms of the concept. What does it mean to be human in this age of AI? It's a big invitation for humans to grow, because we have to become a better human in order to navigate this world and not become a victim of the technology we invented, which is amazing.
Okay, thank you. And what we probably should do then is send our kids to school and teach at school what intuition is and how to apply it.
How to put it on blockchain.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the question and thanks for commenting on this.
I'm Fritz, private investor. I'm going to make a bold statement. Influencers are all bullshitters, right? I apply the 80-20 rule. 80% is shit, 20% is doable. First statement. Second statement, influencers are front runners. You know what front runners are? They tell you about their decision and their investment they've done after they've done it, in order to gain more traction, so that their fucking investment is going to make more money. So, influencers are liars, 80-20%. Of course, they are decent people, and all five of you decent people. But the rest of it is bullshit.
Is there a question that's going to follow? Are you going to have a question or
just
comment? Just comment.
No, the only comment I would like to make is I do follow influencers as well in the market.
I was going to ask.
But I follow half a dozen, maybe 7, from difficult aspects. So technical analysis, people in the business, influencers like yourself, etc. And then I take a decision what I'm going to do. Not just by 1 or 2. Just a comment.
Thanks for sharing, Fritz. And I'm sure you guys should have a discussion at the bar with a gin tonic or a beer. Okay, is there any more questions regarding crypto influencers and how they impact the space? Sure, you can go one more time. We have time.
There's one.
There is one there as well.
Yeah, and then the back somewhere. Okay, Jennifer,
real quick,
maybe.
Piggybacking off of Fritz, what's your opinion? Because blockchain, if I look back at one of the more noble principles, is ultimately democratization, right? And so this idea that anyone, let's leave aside maybe the keyboard warriors, but anyone who's, for example, on crypto Twitter, is theoretically entitled to an opinion that is then he or she gets to share with everyone. So how do you limit the people who should in fact share messages because they are not qualified with this in crypto with this concept of democratization? Everyone should have a word and everyone should be able to say. So leaving aside the responsibility of me as a listener to filter information, how do you ultimately regulate those who instead can share that information at a crypto Twitter level, for example, without going into certifications, etc.?
Maybe. There are a couple of good points you brought, and also to Fritz, right? Eventually, how would you define an influencer? Where does an influencer start? What number?
An influencer, you have various levels of influence. Okay, influencer can be Mike Saylor. Mike Saylor is an influencer.
Okay. Yeah.
Or CEO of ARK Investment is an influencer. You're an influencer.
Coffee would, yeah.
And then I'm an influencer in a different space, not in the crypto space, but in other investments, because I do have an opinion about certain companies I'm invested in. And when I discuss an issue with other fellow investors, I voice my opinion.
Correct.
At that very moment, I'm taking an influence, not deliberately, but indirectly. So there's your definition of an influence.
Right on.
And we should also go back to his comment, right?
That's what I'm going exactly.
Thanks.
That kind of like you've just mentioned, what is also regulated, right? Because by the regulations, by the European regulations, by all the GDPR, all the MiCA right now, markets and crypto assets and so on, influencers are labeled not by the numbers, but what they do in terms of sharing something that they get affiliation for, and that can be a person with 1 follower, and if they share it to the outside world and they do not disclose their affiliation, they are against the law. So it's not a number, it's a matter of working against the rules and the guidelines that exist, right? So that is the answer. The regulations are here. MiCA, for instance, right? Marketing crypto assets. The overall European, Parliament up there. What's happening in the US? It's a process. Regulation is a process, so we're getting there, right? However, eventually, it's influencer is per the legal book. It's not a number. It's what they do, right? And it doesn't really too much correlate, in terms of from the legal standpoint on how many followers they've got, but what they do and what they share, and whether or not they misguide other people by not disclosing and disclosing their affiliation and building some good cause for it.
I'm not regulated.
Okay, Fritz, we'll have the gin tonic afterwards. So, last question maybe in the
There
room.
was also a question there. I think
There's
there was.
so 2 more. We have time for 2 more, so you go first.
Hello, my name is Jan. I know Bitcoin from 2012 and got also into it in that time, 11, 12. It was very cheap.
Indeed.
I lost them so far. But that doesn't matter. Actually, I was part of the Pirate Party, and we were always talking about liquid democracy and how we could change democracy. And it was not possible in Germany because regulations, you could not make online votes. So we directly saw this potential of, wow, okay, now you have this system which could allow anonymous votes which are not fakeable. So this goes with our constitution. It's possible now. This has been in 2012. Crypto has become bigger and bigger and bigger, and I've seen people who made big bucks with it. And I went to some crypto conferences hoping that I will find those like-minded people that I know from back in the days. And I feel like greed got into the way. And those really important topics that could push us as a human race forward got into the back. So you as the key players, how do you see this topic? Do you see advancements in DAO or whatever, like changing democracy, bringing us forward?
So your question goes back to whether or not we are now at the point where we're merely just driven by greed to make the big bucks rather than going back to the initial idea of what this is about, which is about
exactly
freedom and giving power to the individual.
I like your question, and I'm especially pleased that it's actually asked here in Davos. And I hear you, but I think there are these people. But as in general, like I don't think it's about crypto. It's about the humanity that is pretty pushed forward by greed. And I think we do not even know why we need this greed. Like, why do we need all that money? Because actually, if it's greed about a lot of money that you invest into a better world, this is a different thing, right? Yes, I think it's also a responsibility of influencers to shape this, but unfortunately, usually the greed messages, the investment advices, even though they are disclaimed as not investment advices, are much more clickbait. And I talk here about influencers, about journalism, for example. I see that like price movements articles are doing much greater than any of our investigation or coverage of some tech for good. So this tells us a lot about this human nature, but I still have hope, because even if there is one person who asks this question, then, well, we are still having...
But Kristina, we want the money because we think money will make us happy.
You think so?
I was just... Okay, that's another panel
discussion. Can I just end this by asking quickly, all the influencers in the room, please use your audience for something good. Bring back this.
Please use your audience for something good. Even Fritz, please. Last question in the room, and then I'd like to sum up the panel with each one of you.
Yes, hi. My name is Afshar Kal. We are a crypto education company based out of Finland, and we provide certified digital asset advisor designation. Believe it or not, there's a designation like that. My question is, you as influencers, are you trying to form an industry body where you certify yourselves with the ethical code of conduct that you've mentioned? Because the problem that we have, as Fritz mentioned, some of you are anonymous, and we don't know whether you are person X or person Y, and quite often a physical person has two personalities in the social media where they shill one token and shill another token on the other end, or give one opinion on one and another opinion on the other. So you need to self-regulate, I suppose, and that's what we did. We, as financial advisors, formed an industry body called Certified Digital, and we certify because the regulatory authorities are not doing their bit. So just a question, if there's a movement to get an industry body for influencers where real persons with real identities and real certifications like Adrian, who has CMT as far as I know, can go and proudly say, yes, I can give financial advice or investment advice.
Very good question. I guess I should take it up. Feeling responsible for that. Very good point, right? So one thing is this feeling of striving for the ideals and for what the actual designation means, right? Because eventually it means self-improving, right? As long as you can. So as long as there is this desire, and this desire comes up with the feeling of responsibility to be this voice of reason, well, that exactly maybe accidentally puts me in this very chair right now, talking to you. And, you know, there is so much that I can do myself, you know, as a CMT. There are only 3,000 people in the world with this title. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to be this voice of reason in the crypto world, which is a complete shithole, and trying to basically tell, hey, listen, there's a CMT program, there's a CFA program, there's a code of conduct, there is a, you know, the whole code of ethics that we need to abide. And this gives a proof of stamp. This gives a proof of stamp to the education that is being shared. So eventually, by just talking about this, eventually there might be some good, because just maybe there's going to be one person. There are so many great people in this room. There are just going to be maybe one person who's going to get interested and types in the cmtassociation.com. I'm not paid to say that. And they're going to type it in, and maybe that's where the journey starts, right? So eventually, speaking about it, making it real, being in this very chair, which is a very honorable position, and I'm thankful for that, just gives me this a little bit of the opportunity to speak and make this change. However, this change is incremental. It happens over the days. It's a process, right? And by asking the very valid questions that you did, it does help the growth. So probably asking the right questions and then inducing the change by asking the questions this way. Very good point.
Well, thank you for the question. And it looks like we're going to drink a few gin tonics at the bar, so make them ready already. We have a lot to talk about here. So time is up, and thank you so much, dear audience, for asking the questions. Now I'd like to use this opportunity to start with you first, and then we go this way. If you start a sentence with, I wish for the social media crypto influencer space too.
That's a long sentence.
how would you complete the sentence?
To make this world better and think about it. Not to forget about it.
To make the world better, Annika?
To become aware of who are they as human beings, what are their values, and then have the courage with integrity, with every single action, follow this and nothing else.
Adrian?
I'll paraphrase, great question. I'll paraphrase with what Warren Buffett said, that the best investment you can make is investment in yourself, because the more you learn, the more you will earn. So that's what I wish to the crypto influencers.
Nice. And last but not least, Bilal?
Yeah, perhaps be more regulated and less greed.
Okay. And with these words, I would say a grand applause for our influencers. And please follow them on social media, wherever they are. This was our panel discussion. Thank you so much.